Hey everyone, how you going? It's Ed from the ServiceNow Flow Writer coming at you with another ServiceNow Flow video. So I've done a couple of flows now, I think 3 all up, where we've gone through and designed the flow. But one of the main questions we get is all about error handling. So I know in the new Rome release we have the ability to have an error handling option, and you can create a log or incidents or emails from that. But what I've done, I've just created a simple error handling separate flow that checks for certain things, checks for when any flow goes bad. So generally this is the catch-all flow for error handling. So let's get into it. So what I've done, I've already made one, but I'm just going to make one again, just from absolute scratch. And I'm going to call this error handling flow. Once again, I'm going to run it as the system user because that gets the most privileges, as I always do. And I'm going to create that. Now what I'm going to do, every flow that is created runs on a certain table within ServiceNow. And what that does is that the record is created in the flow table, and then it either goes into an error state or a completed state or a waiting state whenever we can actually see the states, which I'll show you now. So it goes complete, it goes anything else. So what we're going to look at is that when a flow is created and it changes to an error state, that's when we want our trigger to be. So the table that this actually runs on is called let's go created, and it's called the flow engine context table, or Sysflow Context. And what this does, this is the table where everything flows on. If you actually look it up in an instant, we can see Sysflow Context .list, excuse me. And once this table comes back in, every flow that's been run in my instance or any of the test instances will come back with the created date, the name of the flow, the state that it went to. We can see we've got a couple of errors here, and I was just testing earlier on this evening, who they were created by, system or admin, and an individual sysID. And there's a lot of other information you can see as well. But essentially what we're going to be doing is talking to this table with our flow trigger and looking for when the state changes to error. That's when we want to be alerted that a flow has failed and we need to actually do something with it, right? So what I will do is to just add another filter into our flow. And like I mentioned before, we're going to look at the state, and when the state, let's actually save that, it's not giving me my changes too, of course. So created, let's actually go created or updated because that's where I want it to change to. So sys flow engine context. And it gets me sometimes when I'm looking for a particular operator in the filter, where we've got changes. It's not, when you create a record, nothing's going to change to a certain state, only when it updates. So if you're missing certain things that you're looking for, have created or updated, that gets you your extra options. So we're looking for when state changes to error. And we obviously don't want to, we want to limit down to just to a flow that's just been created. So we're just going to say created on is going to be today. We don't want to look back at flows from a week ago to fire that off. And we can be a bit more specific as well. If you want to do a certain thing just for a form that you've made, you can say and name is, PC ordering or incident created for this team, or be very, very specific as to when you want this error handling to run. But I want it to run on any flow that fails. And I don't want it to just runs once and then it dies. I want it to run every time that an active flow changes into an error state. So I want this to run for every unique change. What I'm going to do next, I want to be able to link my record. The idea behind this one is that rather than alerting or sending an email, I'm going to create an incident when something fails, and I'm going to assign it to a certain team. So on the incident record, I want to be able to click straight from the incident to go to the flow and see what the error was. So I'm going to use our old link generator from last video. Shout out to Kieran again for making that, which is absolutely brilliant. And I'm going to generate a link. So the table name is a table name that we've chosen up here. So this is our Sysflow Context. And once again, if you're using this link generator, you can use this for any table you want to, whether it's this request item table or whether it's the incident table or whatever else you're running things on, sys user group member, whatever. It just works perfectly every single time. So I'll pick up the sys ID, and then the link name, it's literally going to have a click here to access the flow. That's going to be our hyperlink reference, the text it's going to display. Now I've got my link to the flow. All I'll need to do now is actually go and create an incident record. And I'm going to give it some of my sort of standard values, I guess. So, it's going to be the assignment group of, let's say, cab approval. It's going to be the caller of, let's go system, which is the person I'm logged in as, system administrator. Let's stick a few other things in here. Contract, maybe contact type will be self-service. I actually think that it would be nice to have an extra few options in here, like automation or error handling or something. But now the important ones I want to put in is the short description and the description, which is going to contain most of the information. So the short description, I want to be able to identify this incident as something else that's not just standard work coming into a queue or a group. So I want to highlight and say the listed flow has encountered, is that right? An error. And then I want to actually give the flow name. So there's no point having sysids or links in there. I just want to know what flow it actually is that's caused the problem. Looks right to me. Now in the description, now we can actually use some of the flow data pills. So we can see we've got the flow name, which we've used in the subject line. And we can actually see these down here as well. So we can see the name, the who run it, the source record, the source table. We can see whether it's a test run or not, for instance. And if we had the calling source in here, we can actually see before we start using these ones in the flow what each one is. So looking at the table, we can see the created, what the flow was. So let's go back one view. The states, how long it took to run, who created it, what record it attached to. So that's really interesting. So we can see an SLA down here, service health agreement. We can see this was a request item, this was an incident. And those are like timers. Incident tables, of course, SLA table, that's all fair enough. Test runs, so on flow where we can hit test, that actually calls out whether it's a test or not. So that was a test there I was running before. These ones are genuine ones. And a calling source where I hit the test button, or it's a CRUD trigger. So you create, read, update, and delete trigger. So that's when a flow runs normally. So all that information we can actually populate into our description field to give whoever's getting the incident a lot of information. So if we go calling source, let's just give these the basic names at the start. And we can go calling source is going to be populate with that one there. Let's go state, which we're going to assume all the state is down as an error. So let's go state. What else should we give? Let's give the source table because that's always interesting to know. So source table, and let's go to source table. So that should hopefully say incidents. And created by is an important one as well, because if we want to get back in touch with the person who created the incident or the request that's errored on our flow, we can actually go back to them and ask for more information or ask them to resubmit or say, yep, you did this wrong, resubmit it make sure this is the case, and then it should all go through nicely. So we can see exactly what the error is anyway by looking at that. So let's go created by. Created by is just a string. It's not a reference field in this instance, so it's just going to give the person's email address generally. And then what I normally do is, let's just say, to access this record and flow, please click on the link below in the internal notes. And then you guessed it, I'm going to put one more thing in here, and it's going to be our work notes. And how am I going to get the link to this particular record where the flow is going to sit on this table? Say this one, for instance. Yep, absolutely right. I'm going to call our generated link table record. Now, I'm not going to use any of the portal links because I don't want to go to the front end. I want to go to the back end or the platform UI. So I just want to, it's a journal entry that's going in, so I'm just going to click the native journal link. And that now will now populate an internal note or work note with that display text linking off to the sys on that table of my record. So I think that's pretty much it. All I need to do is just save that. And I can activate that as well. And then what I'm going to do, I was actually trying to think of a flow that just didn't want to work for some reason, so I had to try and create a flow that would fail. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use this one I made earlier. I'm going to run a test, put my incident number in there, which of course won't turn up yet because I need the name of it because they're talking to that, not the incident table. So let's just go to that, run the test, and give that 10 years. There we go. Click on this one here. We can see that it's picked up the error record that this would be running on anyway. So let's just have a look at this. Of course, that's actually completed now. That's annoying. But what I'll do, I actually made one earlier as well with the exact same information just as a test. And what this one had done, it fired off the correct error handling. And it also created me an incident. To say that, yep, we've got an error. It's been assigned to the cab approval group, as I mentioned. Come up with my string text and the name of my flow that's errored. It said it was a CRUD trigger, so it's been properly created. It's not been me testing. It's errored out. It was on the incident table, created by the admin team or the admin user. To access the record, click below, and I can see straight away down here, click on the link, it takes me straight to my my view. So from here, I can either click into the operations view, which we'll go into in a second, or I can see straight away that Flow Designer's come up with an error, failed with error, requested flow operation was prohibited by security rules. So in my other example of my flow I made, I just did it as a system user, and I was trying to do something too big for that. Sorry, as a person who created the record, not the system user. I think I was actually doing something on the ACL table, so I couldn't do it without the security admin, which is always going to fail. So that was my example that I came up with. And then there's a little bit of basic troubleshooting. You can go into the flow design view directly from the table record, and I can see straight away that what else it was trying to do, which is do something with the ACL table. I can't do it by security rules. So I know straight away that my incident is generated. I know exactly what's failed, and I can take a pretty good guess as to what the fix is that the user doesn't have access to do what you need to do. So I can then either go and email the user, or I can actually go and assign the ticket, or I could do a mention in the additional comments to the user and say, hey, you know, your flow, your request has failed. What were you trying to do? Or give me a call and we can work through it together. So I can be instantly alerted with an incident as to when a flow has failed. So I hope that makes sense. Sorry, it's a little bit jumbled up with the example, but this does work. Believe me, I use it for my everyday job as well. And geez, yeah, it's a lifesaver. It's really works really well. Tells me when anything goes down, anything fails, and I can jump onto it immediately rather than having to go through logs at the end of the week or wait for someone to contact me to say, Ed, how come this hasn't worked? I can be on the front foot and offer that great customer experience. So thanks for watching. Tune in for the next video. I'm not sure what that one's going to be on yet, but that'll be hopefully next weekend. I'll come up with another flow-based video. And yeah, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and catch you next time. See ya.